Good afternoon. This is Gaurav Jain, Head of Products for Ali United Bank. It's a pleasure, first of all, getting an invite to speak here on COG 2023 on the interesting topic of product management and the changing times with respect to the competitive that the banks are seeing today. And a lot of this change that we are seeing today is largely around technology. So it's good to be here sitting around with the technology evangelists in terms of Comarc, in terms of other partners that have come around and discuss specifically areas of focus, interest, as to how do we kind of go around with respect to making that change. I think one of the interesting things that we're seeing today is a lot of new players that are coming to the market, fintechs, neobanks that are already there playing in the market and disrupting the market. I think it's with regulation changing with respect to open banking, that has now kind of become importance in the market where we need to kind of look at partnership with various fintechs and various technology partners. It's also interesting to see how do we kind of go about in terms of making the right choice with respect to technology. This is one aspect that kind of comes in. The second is the time to market. While as a tech stack, banks are having their own core banking stacks, it's also about the speed in terms of kind of going about with a cloud-based, banking as a service. These are the kind of options that we're kind of looking at as we speak. One thing unique about this market is the younger demographic, the tech savvy, the penetration of smartphone. This makes digital first as a first go for most of the fintechs or incumbent banks. And in this thing, I think there is no bank that is left today which is kind of not thinking about digital first. But I think what is more important is what is the next step in your journey in order to address from your perspective, from your strategy, based on your strength and weakness. And I think that's the most important thing which kind of sometimes banks kind of forget to look at. And also from a technology company perspective, it's important to understand what the client is looking at, what the customer, what the end user that the bank wants to target is all about. It's all about speed. It's also about the fact that there is a seamless integration and the technology stack is also future ready to kind of incorporate the next wave of changes that the bank might want to do. So from a product management perspective, it's a lot about making sure the product development is making sure that we not only roll out the right kind of product, but I think one important aspect that is changing as we speak today is it's less about products, it's more about experience. And to create the right kind of experience, the user experience, you need to be kind of interweaved with your technology partners, with your partners with respect to fintech, and all of that is kind of playing around as we all speak today. While there is a focus on open banking, there's focus on digital first, I think what is going to change in the coming years in terms of the focus is some areas which has not been deep dived into. For example, an area which I know banks are working on, but the right kind of use case that is not there is personalization. Personalization is, I think, a very important aspect, able to kind of understand and be able to offer and talk to the customer at that point of time when the customer needs a banking requirement or a banking need, let me put it that way. I think that's one important aspect. The second is something that is less talked about in this market, but I think it's going to be a differentiating factor, which is around the subject of sustainability. And I think a lot of it is also that we've seen with respect to post-COVID is with respect to social responsibility. And what we have seen in the market is a lot focus that has come around ethical banking with respect to focus on the Islamic banking. I think we've seen a lot of growth in the Sharia compliant banking, and I think sustainability kind of fits into that from that perspective. So there definitely is a common thread across countries in GCC. However, there is a differentiating factor as to knowing each market. Having worked across this region in UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, I can tell you one thing, that what is probably taking place today in UAE might come to Saudi tomorrow and might be happening in Kuwait eventually after that. So it's a cycle that is there. That is one aspect. The second aspect is we need to understand that these markets are having younger demographic, and that kind of brings in a focus on digital first. There is a surge of e-commerce that we've seen during COVID, post-COVID. There is a lot of thing that's happening around on the payment space, on the wallets. That is something that is, I would say that bringing the market together as one region. In terms of payment, there is a whole lot of interoperability that is being worked upon as we speak. In terms of technology, I wouldn't say that there is too much of a difference between, say, a GCC or, for that matter, in Europe, or for that matter, Asia. It's just a matter of the use case. I think when you need to understand each customer, each consumer, each market specifically, and build a use case specific to that, a lot of technology that would be there might more or less be standard, but it's a little bit of customization that might be required. I think it's important from a bank's perspective, from a fintech's perspective, from a neobank's perspective, to make sure that they're not just implementing something that has happened in the West as is, but to understand more from a customer centricity perspective, to understand what is it that their customers are looking at, and then kind of dwell around and build around that. I think that's the most important thing that I would talk about from a perspective of banking in GCC.